Now I'm going to share with you a little bit about what different world faiths have to say about caring for the environment. And I'm going to put this into 4 categories for you. So the first one is looking at key beliefs about God and humanity's relationship to one another and the natural world. So in some faiths, particularly the Abrahamic faiths, God is seen as creating the world and giving humanity a special role to play in the stewardship of God's creation. Now, stewardship can be defined as the careful and responsible management of something entrusted to one's care. For Jews and Christians, in the book of Genesis, the Lord God took the man and settled him in the Garden of Eden to cultivate and take care of it. There are practical laws in the book of Leviticus regarding the preservation of nature. For example, giving the land its own Sabbath by allowing it to lie fallow every 7th year so the nutrients in the soil are not depleted. In Islam, the Prophet Muhammad taught that the world is green and beautiful and Allah has appointed you his guardian over it. Sharia law protects animals from cruelty, conserves forests, and limits the growth of cities. It is said in the Quran that Allah invites us to enjoy the fruits of the earth, but to avoid excess leading to waste. The Baha'i faith teaches that the world reflects the qualities and attributes of God and should therefore be greatly respected and cherished. Some faiths see God being within nature as well as having the creator of nature. In Hinduism, all living beings are sacred because they are parts of God and should be treated with respect and compassion. This is because the soul can be reincarnated into any form of life. Trees, rivers, and mountains are believed to have souls and should be honored and cared for. Pagans believe that nature is sacred and that everything that lives contains a small spark of the divine. Divinity is present within every part of the cosmos, including all living beings, all the relationships between them, and all the processes of life. Now I'd like to look at the interconnectedness and interdependence and value of all life within different faiths. For pagans, life in human beings is in essence the same as life in the animals and plants for whom we share this earth. Every molecule in our bodies once formed part of other life forms and will do so again after we die. For Buddhists, we are a part of nature, not set apart from it. This requires respect for all sentient beings, not merely human beings. The health of the whole is inseparably linked to the health of the parts. The Jain Faith teaches that all of nature is bound together and says that if one does not care for nature, one does not care for oneself. Now, looking at the ethical imperative to care from the planet from different faiths. There is so much that I could share here, so I'm just giving a couple of examples. So in his encyclical letter in 2015, Care for Our Common Home, Pope Francis confirms climate change as a moral issue, pointing out that the poor suffer the most from consequences of improper care for the environment, even though they have contributed the least to climate change. A central teaching of the Jain faith is Ahimsa, or non-violence. Ahimsa means more than not hurting others. It means not intending to cause harm, physical, mental, or spiritual, to any part of nature, an attitude of compassion towards all life. Sikhs cultivate an awareness and respect for the dignity of all life, human or otherwise. Such respect is fostered where one first recognizes and nurtures the divine inner spark within oneself, then sees it and cherishes it in others. So finally, looking at the implications on our own lifestyle. An important Jain principle is not to waste the gifts of nature and even to reduce one's needs as far as possible. Most Hindus are vegetarian because of this belief in the sanctity of life. The virtue of a simple life has always been prized in Hindu society. Hinduism stresses that true happiness comes from within, not from outer possessions. Life's main purpose is to discover the spiritual nature and the peace and fulfillment it brings. In the Buddhist faith, the Buddha taught people to live simply and appreciate the natural cycle of life. Craving and greed only bring unhappiness, since demands for material possessions can never be satisfied, and people will always demand more, so threatening the environment. This is why the real solution to the environmental crisis begins with the individual. For Sikhs, a simple life free from conspicuous waste is the ideal, a life that stresses mastery over the self rather than mastery over nature. Again, many Sikhs are vegetarian. Sikhism teaches that humans create their surroundings as a reflection of their inner state, and hence the increasing barrenness of earth reflects a spiritual emptiness within humans. The solution, according to Sikhism, can be found in prayer and the spirit of humility before the divine will of God. So just to recap on the central themes across all faiths. Firstly, the importance of the careful and responsible management, protection and preservation of the Earth's resources, respect for all life, not just human life, the interconnectedness of all life, and the avoiding of overconsumption by taking the needs of all those lives, human, animals, and nature into account.